Hey guys, it's Eli, and today I want to talk about astrophotography. So astrophotography is when you take pictures at night, essentially. So anything in the night sky, like stars, planets, galaxies, anything like that. So astrophotography is actually really fun to me. There's a lot you can do. There's things like light painting you can do, but that's a little bit more in depth. Today I just want to stick to the basics of astrophotography and how to get started. So the first thing you're going to need is to be in manual mode on your camera. You cannot be in automatic, it will not work. It'll just be way too dark and you most likely won't see anything at all. And that's a good thing to get away from anyway, because shooting a manual is generally should be your go-to. Other times you might want to have it so that things go around, that everything focuses around like your aperture or your shutter speed, but for astrophotography it's best just to stick to manual. You're going to want to have set a pretty fast aperture. On my camera, the one I'm actually recording on right now, I have a Lumix G7 and I don't have the ability to have an f-stop lower than 3.5. So if you search or research, trying to look this up and do it on your own, they will suggest lower f-stops, but you can shoot at higher ones. So I shoot on 3.5 and basically just balance all the other settings around it. So 3.5 is usually what I stick to. You're going to want to have a long exposure length. The longer exposure is set to, the more light that can come into the lens. Usually I do about 20 seconds, but you know, it always varies. Usually what I do is I just play around with the settings a little bit and just keep trying different stuff until I find one that's really working that night, and then I'll just stick to it. You're also gonna need to shoot in RAW. Shooting in RAW is very important because there's gonna be a lot you're gonna want to do in post. If you're using Lightroom, there's a lot you can change. RAW allows you to change pretty much every manual setting you use to shoot. You're also going to want to use manual focus. You're going to want to focus on one point in the sky. Generally what I do is I zoom really far until I see like a star shining, and then I'll focus on that one star, and it usually gets that general vicinity. Shooting on auto, it's probably really not going to focus on anything because it's kind of hard for the camera to pick out a spot, and it's really hard for you to tell the autofocus when the screen's so dark, because usually you don't see what it really looks like until after the shot's done. You also want to vary your ISOs. So a lot of times I'll just play around with the ISO. I'll start lower and then I'll work my way up. I found that I like to be around 800 to 1000, but generally I'll go up to 16, and rarely I'll go to 3200. 3200 is just a bit too much and it makes too much noise in the image. But, you know, like I said, depending on what situation you're in, it can always be different. It's also very important to either have a delay when you're taking your picture or to have a remote. So when there's a long exposure, anything that touches the camera can cause artifacts or can cause a blur. Because basically this picture is being taken for how many seconds you set it. So if you're setting exposure to 20 seconds, that shot is taking 20 seconds to be completely done. So any movement on the camera, anything can cause blur, can cause just a whole bunch of issues. You don't want that. You just want to keep your camera stable. If you have a remote, that's great. You can just click the button. That's actually probably the best option. But if not, you can always use a delay, so it starts after you're not touching your camera. So I hope these tips helped you out. If you want to get into astrophotography, I highly recommend it. It's really fun. It's a great thing that I like to do with my free time at night. If you were annoyed by never being able to take pictures at night, well, I hope this really helped you out. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed these tips, and I'll see you later.